Tsleil-Waututh and Tsiyálten. Good day, everyone, friends and family. We're here today at Maplewood Flats. So the traditional territories overlap, Tsleil-Waututh and Tsleil-Waututh. So that was our family welcome song. Like so many of you have heard already, or maybe you haven't. Our family songs and dances were composed in the 1950s by late grandpa Bob George and great grandfather Chief Dan George. So the welcome song is significant. Each song has a purpose. Some of our songs can be used in any function, but the welcome song itself is very important to let guests know or relatives know that they're welcome to the land. So if we were to travel long ago, say we were traveling to a neighboring village or somewhere far, and we would be in our canoes, we would be approaching the shores, and if we saw people at the shore with their hands extended, it just meant that we were welcome to come ashore, and it also meant peace. It meant that there was peace between the two villages, because like anywhere else in the world, there's been war as far back as we can remember. And just like anywhere else, we had war here, conflict and disputes. So that's the significance with the welcome song, is to let people know that they're welcome here, and also that there's peace. There's no conflict or dispute.
I remember once I was doing a dance thing in Ottawa, and I asked what song I could sing, and I kind of wanted to sing the greeting of the day, or not greeting of the day. Grandpa really liked that song, but Uncle Bob suggested that I sing the welcome song because I'm going in other people's territory, and that I come, like he said, with a welcoming heart. I don't mean to come into somebody else's territory and be fightful or tell them what to do. I remember sitting in his living room, made me sing it until I knew how to sing it.
Our Spanish language teachers talk about all of the songs that we sing with our drums. Were once all in the language. Every song was in the language at one point. So the songs we sing today, it's almost like an easier version of the songs we used to sing long ago. O's and E's and A's. And it's sure different singing. Like we do have several songs that we sing for different reasons in the language, and it's a lot different. It's like you have to put more of yourself into it. And I think one of our late grandfathers told us, our late grandfather from Chehalis, late Johnny Paul, he said that each village had its own dialect, had its own language. And then, so at one time, the villages weren't able to communicate with each other. They might understand a little bit here and there. So common languages had to be made, like Chinook, which is like a trading language. And our late grandfather talked about Halkomelem, and he called it slang. It was, the way he said it, it was like a common language. So the villagers were able to communicate with each other and understand what they were saying. So I found that interesting. And I'm not sure if it was the same here. I'd imagine that at one time there were many different languages and dialects. And the one thing I was told is that it's the language of the land. It's not something that we could claim or take ownership of, say that one language belongs to us and nobody else. It's just the language that was spoken wherever our ancestors lived. I think a lot of us were taught, when we take from the land, we only take what we need. We don't take too much. And then when we do take a life, whether it's deer, elk, moose, salmon, we try to use all of it. It's almost the whole animal has use, has a purpose. So yeah, significant of the drum, like I almost feel like a lot has changed since I received my first drum. It was a gift. And I know at one point it almost seemed strange that you could go out and buy a drum, purchase a drum. I think the money, the currency has made its way into our culture and our traditions. I don't need to say anything about that, but it costs a lot to travel. If you have to travel to ceremony, it costs a lot to buy gas, to buy food, things like that. Whereas how our ancestors lived, it was like they wouldn't just stay at a ceremony for one evening or 2-3 hours. They would travel somewhere and stay there for sometimes 2 to 3 weeks or as long as a month. And one of our uncles our Uncle Jeff from Scout. I remember that there was one evening he talked to just a handful of us, and we were at ceremony, and he talked about how he said it seemed like it wasn't that long ago. And I remember being at Musqueam, and we were preparing for guests to arrive. And he said he was just a young man, and he was chopping kindling almost all day, or maybe half the day. And then when the guests were arriving to the gathering, they would be at the door handing out kindling to the guests, normally the men that were arriving, because at one time it was only like maybe one drum per village. One of the men in the village would use a drum, and everyone else would be using sticks, or in this case kindling, to keep time, to drum along with the songs. So a lot has changed since then. This was maybe 1950s, 60s, 70s. Now there's so many drums. Sometimes the elders, some of our elders won't go. They'll stay away because it's too loud. The drums are just too loud, to the point where sometimes we can't even hear the songs. So I think about our other uncle, late Uncle Johnny Williams. I remember him talking about when drums would get too loud with his home, with his family. He would go out onto the floor and in the smokehouse and just start taking drums away. Take drums away if he thought the drums were getting too loud. So I've never seen that. Not in my lifetime, and not yet. I hear some people will talk about the drums being too loud, but it doesn't really change anything. But it's one thing I was taught being a singer. It's the words in the song. I mean, that's what really matters. That's the significance in the songs that we sing. So
storytelling and sitting around a fire like this, and learning about what elders did and where they must have been at that time to have the strength to do something like that. Because we were just talking earlier about, if we were to be stranded in the bush, how would we be able to survive for days without going to Safeway or roasting a hot dog? Finding the resources and being able to stay healthy. It's good to have those feelings of being one with nature, or being respectful for the wildlife. What's really rich with all Uncle Bob's songs and the vision that he had years ago is it connects you to the land, and it gives you teachings in a way where you can't teach it in a school. It was one of our grandmothers that heard and saw the fire downtown. She paddled over singing the paddles. All those little connections and stories, the strength they must have been in. The two songs that you sang, we never really did a dance to the welcome song. But maybe that's something that we can work on together. The swan song. My mom used to always sing it. I know they'd take turns singing different songs and dancing different songs. Colette did the Eagle, Joe did Black Hawk, and then Auntie Anne did Lost Love. My mom did Swan Song. And that was just a way of welcoming people. She used to say to me is those swan feathers. She'd visualize the swan feathers on her arm. She'd be cleaning away space. So that, you know, if it was a gathering amongst nations and people, relatives and family, she cleared the space so that through that song, so that their visit would be good. That would happen. Was a little bit in the song too where I would visualize that too, and then sometimes that good medicine when speakers speak or when songs get sung. There's a point in the song where we take it and we turn around, and some girls call it like an egg. But I used to think all those good things that we pick up, then I keep them like that, bring them and share them with family.
Almost like a secret society. And I was told they would live separate from everyone else. They wouldn't live in the village. So from what we were told, Black Hawk, one of our ancestors, was part of that group, that secret society. He was a great warrior. Said to have great spiritual strength, or some might even say like mystical powers that would help him win in battle. He was fighting. So Black Hawk fell in love with a woman from a neighboring village, and they wanted to get married. So marriage should have been okay, but the two villages were in dispute. Some hunting grounds?
Yeah.
Were in dispute over some hunting grounds. So the marriage was not allowed, but Black Hawk was stubborn. So he took this woman, and they ran away. They wanted to be together. They ran away into the forest and eventually returned. And like I said, this warrior society long ago, it was like they had one job to do. That was to train and prepare for war, protect the people in the village. So Black Hawk did was wrong. Left the people, and he had to be punished. So his punishment was death. So he just asked the people in the village if he could sing and dance his dance one last time. So they granted him this request. So, from what we were told, when Black Hawk was dancing, the warriors that were there were shooting him with their arrows. But because of the strength and the belief that he had in himself and his dance, he just pulled the arrows out, threw them at the drummers, and he just kept dancing. And at the end, when the song breaks and the drum comes to a stop, that's when he fell to the floor and he died. So the woman he was with was so upset. She ran out of the longhouse and she ran into the forest. Some of the men in the village followed her just to make sure she was okay. And she was running and screaming and wailing. Eventually, it turned into a cry, which then turned into a song. And the song is called Lost Love.
So, yeah, from my understanding, almost all of our culture and traditions here for our people was either lost or forgotten. So lucky for us, like what we already mentioned, our ancestors put these songs and these dances together in the 1950s, just as a way to not only share a little bit of who we are, our people here in Tsleil-Waututh, but it's also, it's like medicine not only for the people that we're singing to or dancing for, but it's also medicine for us. Like karma, what we put out into the world, we put good out into the world, and eventually it'll come back like a prayer or like a blessing. I was just thinking about something Auntie Gwen shared. She said her late grandmother was, from Chehalis. She had all her spiritual things taken out of their home, put in the yard. They divided it in half. Half of it they burned right in front of her, and the other half was sent to museums, all different places. One thing that's really crazy from what she said is one of she said it was one of her grandmother's belongings was actually returned. Like years later, somebody, I don't know if they recognized it, they saw it in the museum and actually returned it to her. So yeah, we see those things, you know, as some of our spiritual things, cultural things, traditional things in the museums. And some of it, obviously less fortunate, some of it was destroyed, burned, disposed of.
Yeah, our first grandfather was transformed to live on the land, share the land. But all that he knew about this territory came from the Mama Wolf. And in his upbringing, he knew where to go when the berries were ripe, when to fish, when to eat off the beach. And then he realized there was no little ones following. So he kind of got frustrated because all the family that he grew up with, they were all starting to have cubs and babies. And he went up on top of the cliff and he was praying really hard to Tsiyálten, asking why is there no young ones following him on two legs? And the message that he got when he got to the top of the cliff was to dive deep down into the inlet. And as he was doing that, it was almost miraculous how he could go so deep that he went to the bottom and picked up two handfuls of sediment. And when he grabbed them, again, almost miraculously, you know, when you pick up sand or sediment from the water, it just kind of like drapes through your hand. It stayed in a mound, and he brought it to the beach and he cleared it with some cedar boughs, made a circle, put the sediment on the cedar boughs. And being so tired from and feeling all that anguish, and then swimming down to the deep bottom of the inlet, he fell asleep. And when the first light hit him, he looked over to where he had laid the sediment and saw our first grandmother laying there on the cedar boughs. And as she woke, they both looked at each other and they both knew this was the answer to his prayers. And then they were spoken to again by Tsiyálten. And he had said to them, you look after one another. You take care of one another and you will know the bounty of this land. You will know the bounty of the inlet, and your people will flourish. And he said, remember where you came from. Remember all that you were taught around here. So from that time forward, he always paid homage to the mother wolf. And I like to think that's where I place our nature song as well. Is giving thanks to the land, the trees, the rooted ones, and everything in it, the four-leggeds, the feathered ones, the wind, and everything that we get out from the land. Just giving thanks back to all of that. So there's a men's wolf and a lady's wolf.
Oh, hello, 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 hello. 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 Oh, oh, hello, oh, hello, oh, hello, oh, hello, hello, oh, hello, oh, hello, hello, oh, hello, hello, oh, hello, hello, oh, hello, oh, hello, hello. Oh, hello, hello, oh, hello, hello, oh, hello, oh, hello, hello, oh, hello, hello, oh, hello, hello, oh, 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 hello, hello, oh, oh,